I spent the last week rewatching Rick and Morty, and I found 17 secrets about Rick Sanchez that you definitely didn't know. Starting off with one of Rick's most guarded secrets, the tragedy that sets him on his path. In a season 3 episode, Rick shows a flashback of his wife Diane and younger daughter Beth being killed by another Rick, then claims it was a fake memory. However, the 5th season confirms this backstory was mostly true. Rick's wife and original Beth were murdered by an evil Rick, Rick Prime, and Rick spent decades hunting their killer. The only fabricated part was the timing of Rick's invention of the portal gun. This long-hidden pain explains Rick's cynicism and quest for vengeance, revealing that his goofy denial masked a very real trauma. It shocked many fans to realize that the Rick we follow, Rick C-137, isn't even Morty's original grandfather. Rick C-137 lost his own Beth and family, then eventually moved into an alternate dimension, the one where Morty was born, to live with the Beth that Rick Prime abandoned. In other words, the Morty we know comes from the Prime dimension, and Rick essentially took the place of that world's Rick. He pretended to be Beth's long-lost father returning home, when in fact, our Rick had never been in Morty's life until a month before the pilot. Rick's signature portal gun is used by Ricks everywhere, but very few fans realize Rick C-137 is one of only 2 Ricks to ever invent interdimensional travel independently. When the sinister Rick Prime offered him the secret to portal technology, Rick C-137 arrogantly refused, then went on to crack the science on his own out of spite and grief. All other Ricks obtained portal tech by copying these two. This makes our Rick uniquely brilliant, even among his genius counterparts, and the Rickiest Rick having achieved the impossible on his own terms. It also means he carried the arrogance of an inventor god among Ricks. Ironically, Rick's crusade against his alternate selves led to the creation of his greatest annoyance. After Rick C-137 began murdering countless other Ricks in his hunt for Rick Prime, the surviving Ricks banded together for protection and formed the Citadel of Ricks. In a dark twist, Rick C-137 actually oversaw the Citadel's construction before abandoning it. He essentially drove his counterparts to unite, then snubbed their society. This lesser-known history means Rick was indirectly responsible for the very council and bureaucracy of Ricks that he later despises. The Citadel's existence is a monument to Rick's capacity for destruction and his refusal to play well with others. Rick's devil-may-care attitude hides severe depression. The most haunting evidence comes at the end of autoerotic assimilation, when Unity leaves him. Rick gets blackout drunk in his garage and nearly kills himself with a homemade suicide device, only surviving by passing out at the final moment. It's an easy-to-miss scene set to the song Do You Feel It that reveals the depth of Rick's loneliness and pain. In typical Rick fashion, the incident is never discussed afterward, but that silent attempt of suicide remains one of the show's darkest secrets, a glimpse at how desperate and self-destructive Rick can become when no one's watching. Rick's absurd catchphrase wubba-lubba-dub-dub isn't just nonsense. It was a hidden meaning that even Morty didn't catch at first. In season 2, Bird Person reveals that in his people's tongue, wubba-lubba-dub-dub translates to I am in great pain, please help me. It turns out Rick's goofy, oft-repeated catchphrase was actually an anguished admission of his misery. This dark joke perfectly encapsulates Rick's character, masking trauma behind humor. What sounded like a zany slogan was in fact a secret cry of loneliness and depression, hiding in plain sight every time Rick said it. One subtle secret about Rick is that he might be on the autism spectrum. In the season 3 finale, while playing Minecraft, Rick asks Morty if the game is popular with autistic people. Morty objects and Rick retorts, because I'm starting to love it, implying that he identifies with being autistic. In his younger days, Rick wasn't just a family man or scientist. He was a freedom fighter and a rock star. Rick fought in a rebellion against the Galactic Federation alongside his best friend Bird Person and Squanchy, as glimpsed in flashbacks. After their battles, the trio even formed a rock band called the Flesh Curtains and played gigs together. Season 5 introduced a hilariously enigmatic figure from Rick's past, Mr. Nimbus, the flamboyant ocean-dwelling nemesis of Rick. In Rick's tense reunion with Nimbus, we get a few intriguing clues. Nimbus casually calls Rick Richard, implying Rick's real first name is indeed Richard, and asks about an old acquaintance. Where is that Kyle? Rick brushes it off, but this implies Rick had an assistant named Kyle at some point, whom even Morty has never heard of. To this day, Kyle has never appeared on screen, making fans wonder about that untold story. One of Rick's strangest inventions is Fruipyland, a child-proof pocket dimension he built for young Beth. At first, it seemed like a whimsical gift to his daughter, a fantasy land for her to play in, but the truth behind Fruipyland is a bit more disturbing. Rick made it because Beth was a violent, sociopathic child who could not be trusted in the real world. In The ABCs of Beth, Rick admits he created Fruipyland to keep Beth occupied and others safe after she caused a kid named Tommy to vanish there. The revelation that Beth had cruel tendencies and that Rick enabled them by building a whole world as her playground/prison is a chilling family secret. It sheds light on Beth's own issues and Rick's questionable parenting. Rick harbors a heartbreaking secret regarding his daughter's happiness. In Season 4's finale, we learn that Rick cloned his daughter Beth, and even he no longer knows which Beth is the original. Feeling guilty that Beth might have wanted a life of adventure, Rick offered to make a clone so one Beth could roam the cosmos, Space Beth, while the other stayed with the family. But Rick couldn't bear to choose one path for his daughter, so he created the clone and randomized them, wiping his own memories so he wouldn't know who was who. This means the Beth on Earth and the Beth in space are both real to him. Rick kept this secret from everyone for years. When it finally came out, he was forced to admit it was a cowardly move, a rare moment of remorse where Rick calls himself a terrible father. Many fans remember that Rick and Morty abandoned their original reality in Season 1 after turning everyone into mutants, the Cronenberg world. But a lesser-known secret is that this wasn't the only time. Rick has quietly hopped to new universes multiple times. In Morty's Mind Blowers, Morty discovers he can hear the secret conversations of super-intelligent squirrels, prompting the squirrels to target them. Rick's solution? Well, time to relocate to a new reality, Morty. This throwaway gag confirms that Rick is perfectly willing to ditch an entire universe whenever things go south. It's implied that they did exactly that to escape vengeful squirrels, and Rick remarks you can only do that a couple of times. The idea that the show's current setting might not even be their second reality, but potentially a third or more, is a mind-bending secret. Ever wonder why Rick insists on dragging Morty on dangerous adventures? The obvious answer is that he loves his grandson in his own twisted way. But there is also a scientific secret behind it. In Season 1's Close Rick Encounters of the Rick Kind, Rick reveals that when a Rick is with a Morty, the genius waves get cancelled out by the Morty waves, hiding Rick's brain signature. Rick's brain waves are highly traceable due to their immense genius, and the best way to avoid detection by enemies like the Council of Ricks or the Galactic Federation is to have a Morty nearby whose naive, simple brain patterns mask the signal. In other words, Morty is a walking brain camouflage for Rick. Our Rick, C-137, even acknowledges this was a rare bit of earnestness. You're a camouflage, he tells Morty. In Close Rick Encounters of the Rick Kind, eagle-eyed fans spotted a perplexing detail in Rick's memories. During Rick's mind scan, we can see an image of Rick holding a baby Morty. Yet, Rick shouldn't have known Morty as a baby. Morty was born in a timeline where Rick was absent, and Rick only came into his life when Morty was a teenager. So how could Rick have a memory of infant Morty? This inconsistency spawned theories for years. The show hasn't explicitly answered this, making it a tantalizing, unresolved secret. Rick often pretends to not give a damn about anyone, but Rick C-137 has shown more genuine affection for his family than most of his variants. In fact, no other Rick has been shown to care about Morty or Summer as much as our Rick does. This was hinted at when Rick sacrificed his freedom for his entire family in the Season 2 finale, and even more characters in-universe notice it. The reason may be that, since his original Beth and family died, Rick C-137 truly cherishes the replacement family he's found. He masks it with sarcasm and selfish antics, but time and time again, he goes the extra mile for Morty and Summer, whether it's nearly sacrificing himself to save Morty or getting revenge on anyone who harms them. Rick's love life has always been cosmopolitan. The creators have confirmed that Rick Sanchez is pansexual. He's attracted to all genders, species, even planetary entities. Rick's ex-lover Unity was a hive mind comprising millions of aliens, and he didn't mind any of it. He's had flings with a variety of beings, from a collective hive mind to a sentient planet, Gaia, to countless extraterrestrial women and men and others. Importantly, Rick doesn't label his orientation. He simply indulges in whatever or whomever interests him at the moment, unconstrained by conventional norms. In a multiverse full of possibilities, Rick literally doesn't care about boundaries. Now, these were the 17 secrets about Rick you didn't know. If you want to know more about the darkest episode in Rick and Morty, then click on this video here. Bye-bye now.